Uncle Doug.
Uncle Dan.
Have you ever wished that you were a member of a church that you couldn't pronounce?
Nope.
Okay. That's the end of this show. Thanks, everybody.
Moving on.
Well, we were members of a church whose name we no longer know.
Right, and whose name was so long that that only an idiot would actually ask you to say the whole thing.
Does it have an acronym now? Where friends were talking about how the church formerly known as Mormon has changed its name to the Restored True Faith of Holy Baby Jesus.
The one and only Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah,
If you
Temple
say anything
Square.
else, then you'll be in dirty trouble.
I hope they go whole Prince and do a symbol.
Just a symbol.
A little
sure.
Liahona.
Yeah.
Little Leona.
In that font that they like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fellas, the other night I was watching a movie.
Yeah. You do that?
I do that sometimes.
Okay.
And it was a movie about the most famous person out of an entire ancient religion, really even more famous than its founder, I would say. So I decided we should have a chat about this very interesting religion and a little bit about its most famous son.
You were watching a religious movie.
I always, that's all I watch. The most famous son of this particular religion is Farouk Bulsara, who's known to his friends as Freddie Mercury.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
And he was the greatest Zoroastrian rock star ever as of this recording.
I feel like you can make that judgment semi in the clear.
You can stand by that one.
I think you're pretty safe on that one.
Yeah, the math checks out. But again, it's early in the year.
Right.
So Freddie, it turns out, Freddie was born in Africa, raised in India, and immigrated to England, but like the religion of his parents, Freddie saw himself as Persian at heart, having famously said, "I'll walk around like a Persian popinjay and no one's going to stop me, honey."
Well, of course he used the word popinjay.
Yes.
This is Scaramouche we're talking about.
Yeah.
And B, that's delightful.
Isn't that delightful?
Yeah.
I actually saw an interview with Rami Malek, and they're asking him how he enjoyed playing Freddie Mercury. He's like, "Look, who gets to say darling and honey at the end of every sentence?" I can't say that. Freddie could do it. So what is this very old and not very well understood Persian faith that produced just such a fabulous popinjay? It is Zoroastrianism.
Yes.
And it was most likely founded in the mountains of what is now northern Iran about 3,500 years ago by its prophet Zarathustra.
Who also sprach, just so that
He
you know.
also sprach. He was he inspired Nietzsche to write a particular book.
And then subsequently Richard Strauss
That's right. A symphonic tribute to Nietzsche's tribute
to
Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury.
So, in time, it became the official state religion of pre-Islamic Persia under Darius I. Naturally, we all know that.
Of course.
And then it spread and covered all the way from Egypt and Greece in the west to Pakistan in the east. So it was huge. It began to get pushed back from the west with the military adventures of Alexander the Great and his victories over the Persians, which you can all see in an amazing documentary called The 300. Then it really got creamed in the Islamic invasion of Persia in 633 CE. Now, it's still a living religion, interestingly enough, and it didn't die with Freddie, but it's continued its steady decline since Alexander first kicked it in the balls. There's now less than 200,000 of them left in the world, mostly in India, and a few left in Iran. Part of the problem with the dwindling numbers is that they don't accept converts. So
that's your problem right there.
Yeah. Well, they kind of have a thing like the Jews, where it's the culture / religion is kind of based on lineage,
Right.
But the Jews are kind of like, not that crazy about it.
It's still not it's not a great idea if you want your faith to stick around.
No,
I mean, it's not as bad as the Shakers, who I believe weren't allowed to have sex.
Yeah.
But, nevertheless, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, they never figured out where babies came from when the babies stopped coming. So there's also this precept that you have to marry, a Zoroastrian has to marry another Zoroastrian. So with their dwindling numbers and the pressures of the modern world, a lot of young people just choose to leave so they can marry someone.
So you can't, if I wanted to become Zoroastrian, I could not do it.
Not really, no.
Wow.
You could go, you can go to hang out with them. They're apparently quite nice people, but you're not.
Well,
not
technically, Hinduism is similar. Hinduism, you're not allowed to convert to that either. which is why the
Hare Krishna.
the Hare Krishnas popped up because they were like
White Hindus.
it was a bunch of people who wanted to be Hindu who were like, I don't know, Ravi Shankar was all popular and shit, and they were like, I want to do that, but
It was the 60s.
nobody would let them. So
but
eventually, once you've finished this report, all of our listeners are going to want to join Zoroastrianism, and then suddenly we'll have a...
Wait till I get to the end. Boy, are they really going to want to join it. Because
But with Hinduism, there's 800 million people breeding in that religion, whereas Zoroastrianism has 200,000.
yeah.
oh, there's way more Hindus than that.
Yeah.
And there are more every day. So what do these people believe? So I mentioned the Jews a minute ago. Both faiths look like they sprung out of a similar moment in time between 3,000 and 4,000 years ago. Geographically, it's pretty unlikely that they both have a common root, but they are the two oldest known monotheistic religions.
Okay.
So,
And as we know, monotheism is what precipitated the decline and fall of civilization as we know it. So
and
that's good.
monotheism is the right thing to do.
Right. It is correct.
Although, and we've talked about this a bunch on the show, Christianity is not really a monotheistic religion.
No. I don't believe any of them actually are.
No, and especially not Catholic Christianity, but
There's so many ways in which no monotheism is actual monotheism.
I think Zoroastrianism comes pretty close.
Okay.
I think because and I'll explain why.
Well, I'm going to refute you, even though I know nothing about it. So.
Please do. Please play the devil's advocate here. So, I say that they're the oldest known monotheistic religions because the modern human brain is about 200,000 years old, and these two religions only dip into the top 1.5% of that massive cognitive timeline, right? Which is kind of amazing when you think about it. So there were probably others that we don't know about.
Sure.
Let's just say there were. That's our opinion. So Zoroastrianism holds a very dualistic kind of notion of the universe. It's the opposition in all things, good and evil, light and dark, et cetera, et cetera. They had probably the earliest version of heaven and hell. And we discussed, I think you talked about this a while back, Dan, the idea that when you die, you cross this bridge
Yeah.
into the afterlife and you're met by a child that represents your earthly deeds.
Okay.
And you hope it's a pretty little child with
Right.
not the old hag that I'm going to see on the other side.
Right.
Some people think they worship fire. They don't, but fire is a super important symbol, and it represents obviously the power of light and warmth to push back the darkness. They have these temples where fires burn, are always burning, always kept alive.
Stannis Baratheon is a Zoroastrian.
Is he really? Good to know.
He's got the red woman, and they do the fire thing.
Yep.
So the symbol of the religion is called the Faravahar, and you've seen it before. It's kind of a guy standing in the center of what looks like spread out eagle wings. And the wings are important. They have 3 rows of feathers, and the top row symbolizes good thoughts. The next row symbolizes good words, and the last is good deeds. So good words, good thoughts, good words, good deeds is the defining creed of Zoroastrianism, and they actually sell bumper stickers with that.
Of course, and it played a big role in that film about Bohemian Rhapsody.
Well, I read an interview with his sister.
Whose sister?
Freddie's.
Okay.
Freddie's sister from a while ago, and she was talking about how he personally wasn't particularly religious, but
Yeah, but remember his dad said it to him in the movie, and then
That's
he said
right.
it back to him and stuff. I'm just saying.
and she said his kindness and generosity came out of being raised as Zoroastrian. So
Okay.
there you go.
There you go.
As we discussed earlier,
So why are we such dicks? Is that Mormonism?
with no good. What's our thing?
But Mormons?
Mormon good casseroles,
It's a beehive.
good handshakes, and
Good casseroles, good handshakes, and bad shoes.
yeah.
So, as I said earlier, Zoroastrianism covered a huge area in the Near East. So it was extremely influential. Growing up in the Christian world, this time of year, we all learned an absurd and maybe not real story about a Roman census that required people to drop everything and go to where their dad was from to be counted.
Right.
And then the hotels were booked, and a 12-year-old girl who had sex with the creator of the universe had her baby in a shed. So,
Oh, holy night.
well, the 3 wise men that followed a star, which is not how stars work, FYI, those guys were Zoroastrians.
Oh,
Yeah, and
says who?
a not a nickname, but another name people had for Zoroastrians at the time was Magi.
Okay.
Because then that's where the word magic comes from, because Zoroastrians were very much into astronomy and astrology. And it kind of impressed everybody.
Okay.
So we've all met Zoroastrians before in that story. We just didn't know that's what they were.
No kidding.
Well, and that, if there's one thing that we know religions love to do, it's to say that people from other religions are worshiping their guy.
Exactly right.
So that makes nothing but sense.
All that makes sense. So, and speaking of Christmas, the biggest holiday on the Zoroastrian calendar, Yalda, is held on December 21st.
Happy Yalda, you guys. We just missed it. Damn it.
It was a beautiful Yalda this year.
Oh, man.
So it's a solstice holiday,
Of course.
obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, great.
Yalda.
Yeah, because they're so about the duality of light and darkness, so
Yeah.
it's obviously important. But where we can most clearly
I'll
see...
bet they light a fire. I'll bet that's
They
what
do light a fire.
I'll bet that's what they do.
They didn't start the fire.
It was
Actually,
always
they
burning.
did. I think they were the ones
They
that started
were.
the fire. Where we can see the influence of Zoroastrian the most on another religion is in the younger of the great plagiarizing religions of the area, Islam.
Aha.
So like Zarathustra, Muhammad was the singular prophet and messenger who received great wisdom from the divine alone in the mountains.
Right.
In Islam, people wash and pray 5 times a day. Zoroastrians feed their sacred fires and pray 5 times a day as well.
It's a ripoff.
Yeah. So while Islam, Christianity, and Judaism have cubic shit tons of violence and justifications for it in their foundational texts, it appears not to be much of a thing in Zoroastrianism. There was violence in their past, but they're more focused on those good deeds and trying to make the world a better place. That, sadly, is not what the other religions stole from it. Right. So good on them.
Yeah.
But they're not with it. There are oddities. There is some weird shit. This is the juicy stuff. So traditionally, they think what occurs in mortal death is not that the body stops working, but that it's become irrevocably possessed by a demon. So they used to place bodies on top of dakmas, which in English are called towers of silence, for the process of excarnation. Dan, what is excarnation?
That is when a flower wilts.
Very close. It is the stripping of flesh and organs off of a corpse.
Yeah.
Why the towers of silence? Well, why excarnate your loved ones yourself when carrion birds can do it for you?
Right.
Yes. What's more respectful and solemn than vultures tearing your grandmother's tits off?
It's a lovely image. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks
So,
for conjuring that.
there's also some deal where a dog is brought in to stare at the corpse during the funeral. Why not? And
Sure.
And also, there's the ritual washing with bull's urine.
I will say this. As horrific as you tried to make it sound, I like the idea of my body being sort of shredded by critters. Like my dad used to say, I used to ask him what he wanted us to do with him when he died, and he would say, "Well, just throw me to the wolves," which I couldn't do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That you guys know about. but I like the idea of just let nature do its thing. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, it's a bit graphic, but let's wrap up the story with a return to Mr. Fahrenheit himself, the great Freddie Mercury. So following his tragic and early death from AIDS-related complications in 1991, he was not placed on a bird perch to be eaten by buzzards.
Rude.
Though that would have been the kind of grand theatrical exit that would have suited the flamboyant Persian popinjay. But bird feeding is no longer the favored way for Zoroastrians to dispose of their dead, whether it's the logistical complications of getting a permit to have a dozen huge carnivorous birds eat a rotting rock star on a telephone pole in Kensington, or a modern sensibilities finding that kind of thing a little shocking, maybe a combination of both. So Freddie
What you do is you go for chickens instead of vultures.
Oh, my God. What time that would take. So Freddie actually was cremated by Zoroastrian priests in the light of the sacred fire.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So he pushed back the darkness of death and went out in a blaze of light. Hard to think of a better way to send him off to the massive stadium concert in the sky. But that's the Zoroastrians.
There you go.
They've,
I think I figured out a way to get all these. We can tell the Freedom from Religion Foundation how to get all the nativity scenes off of all of the state property.
a Zoroastrian funeral.
Those are Zoroastrians right there.
Oh,
they're gone.
Get Andrew on the phone right now. Perfect.
And Jews.
Well, there you go, guys.
Fancy. Thank you for that. I actually knew nothing about Zoroastrianism except for the Richard Strauss.
And now you know a tiny bit more.
Now I know almost nothing.
Well, joyous Yalda, everyone.
Okay, moving on.